Hi guys, so I wanted to hop on really quick or try to make it quick and explain to you about my handwriting approach. Um, I have been getting so many questions about it because I showed Chloe writing on her college ruled notebook paper and she's doing her, what's it called, her book report. And I don't know, I don't know the best way to put it because I in the beginning was very clueless as to what I was doing. So when I first started, I didn't have the well-trained mind. I didn't have other homeschool friends. I didn't have this community for one. So when I did schooling with the girls, I winged it all. So in preschool, I decided to teach the girls how to write their letters and their numbers up to 10. And so in the process of trying to figure out the best approach to teaching handwriting, I took the approach of a whiteboard. So instead of having the girls start on paper, I started them on a whiteboard. And this way I was able to guide them with their hand when they were making the, um, the letters themselves. And another thing that really helped with them learning and helped me later on when I'm trying to teach them from afar, like as they're writing and not guiding them, is to talk them through the letters. And that means when I first started teaching the girls handwriting, I started with C and not A because C starts a lot of the letter formation. So what I would do is I would talk them through it. Okay, you start here, you go up and around and almost close the circle, and that's your C. And like I would talk them over that so that when later on, when I'm watching them, and if they don't know how to do something on a piece of paper, I could just be like, remember, you start here and you go up around and almost close the circle, and that would help them kind of visualize it in their head, and through repetition they caught on to, okay, this is how we write the letters. So for example, if I was teaching them how to write the letter N, I would guide them with their hand and I'd talk to them. I'd say, okay, you make one line down, you go up over the same line, and you come around to make a hill, and you stop it at the very bottom. So I mean, that might not be the exact way I did it, but every single letter had this certain way that I would talk them through that, so that when we moved on to line paper, which I didn't move on to line paper until they fully mastered like the letter formation. I didn't, and I don't mean they were like perfectly neat. I just mean if I said to write an A, they knew, okay, this is an A. It could be ugly, it could be, you know, not perfect, but as long as they knew that. And then the mastery on paper was for their level. So if they're in kindergarten, their mastery is not going to be what I expect when they're third grade. So we moved on to the appropriate size lines for their paper or for their grade. So we went to kindergarten lines, and that is when we started talking about it again. Like I'd go through the letters with them. I would say, okay, you start at the middle. Say an N. You start at the middle line. You go down to the bottom line. You go up over that same line, almost hit the top line, come over a hill, and then hit the bottom line. So I would talk them through it. So later on, when I was watching over their shoulder, I didn't have to like guide their hand. I could just tell them, okay, you know, and I'd walk them through it. And so eventually they knew, okay, top line, bottom line, middle line, you know, and so that kind of discussion with them and like them learning how to write and listening to me describe it to them really helped me later on. If I was watching them and I was like, wait, that's not right, let's just, you know, and then I'd walk them through it and they'd know how to do it based off of the memory of what we discussed when we were learning in the beginning. Another tip I will give you is if you are teaching your children to write, I suggest teaching them the right way in the beginning. And that means if, you know, if you're drawing a B and you draw from the top line to the bottom line, that's typically how you would do it. If they're drawing from the bottom line to the top line, that's, you know, that's not going to help them when they, if you decide to do cursive, and then it's just, you know, that's not really proper the way you're doing it. Now it's up to you, I guess, how strict you want to be, but if you do want them to form a letter a certain way, not correcting them in the beginning is going to make it harder to undo that bad habit or the bad habit that you might you know, you might have later on. So that's my suggestion too. You know, I did this by practice. You know, even early on, if my girls' handwriting got really sloppy, I would make sure that they either erased it or we would practice the ABCs, or, you know, I think they caught on like, okay, I got to take my time, form them correctly. And through, I mean, it's not easy when kids are young to write, but through that practice, it does become like a smoother transition for them. So that's why when you see Chloe writing and actually Olivia writing, it's very like a smooth, like we would write. And that wasn't always like that though. That took a lot of practice and a lot of patience on my part, patience on their part. You know, it's a very gentle approach to it, but I'm all about like structure, and you know, I don't want my kids to have bad habits in the beginning. So if I teach them now, these small little tricks and little tips that I can give them, it's going to help them later on, and it's going to help me not have to backtrack and teach them again. So I didn't use a handwriting curriculum. When I partnered with The Good and the Beautiful, I tried it out, and it's not that there was anything wrong with their work, but I don't want to make my kids do handwriting and writing on top of that, because my girls know how to write, I do a lot of writing with them in general, like narrations and writing workshop. So instead of having them copy the A, 10 times or whatever the handwriting copy work was, I was just correcting them as they were writing for their narrations that were already assigned to them. And their Writing with Ease comes with copy work. And so through that, I was able to allow them to practice. So I didn't want to double up. So it's not that there was anything wrong with The Good and the Beautiful's handwriting curriculum. It's just that it was adding on to something that I didn't, or adding on to their workload that I didn't think they needed. So you can choose, however, if handwriting a notebook is something that you need, or like a curriculum, then by all means, I think that The Good and the Beautiful's is perfect. I mean, I don't really think there's a bad handwriting curriculum, because it's usually just going to give you the the dotted lines and like the grayed out letters that you can copy over and practice and stuff like that. So I don't think there's a bad one out there. I just didn't personally use that because people ask me how I get my kids to sit still for a long time, and a lot of it is that we do a lot of work, but it's not tedious. Like I don't make them do too much. If I feel like they're doing too much, I even tell you guys, like, okay, I can tell Chloe's just like done with writing, I write for them. Like those small little acts of like kindness, when you like step in, you're like, you know what, you look like you're tired of doing this, let me do this. Or if I tell my youngest daughter, okay, you don't have to color, if I can just tell she's just dragging and she does not want to. Those little things don't matter in the end. It's not going to affect their abilities if you help them, if you step in. It's not going to hurt Olivia if she doesn't like to color and she doesn't color her pictures in. I do want to take her, I do give her those lessons still to draw and do things like that, just because I want her creative side to flourish too. But if she's not as creative on that aspect as Chloe is, that's not a big deal. But I want to make sure that I'm fueling the fire a little bit so she can have that creativity, just, even if it's not the same as Chloe's, because Chloe loves to draw and she loves to be creative and stuff like that. And if Olivia loves to do puzzles, and that's fine too. Chloe's not so much, but they'll sit there, they'll do their own thing, and that's okay if I can accent what they really enjoy. So basically, handwriting is just practice. A lot of it was me talking them through. If you're in the beginning and you're wondering what I did, I guided them on a whiteboard. I did not move on to lined paper until they were really like decent at writing the letters. And then you bring them to lined paper, and then you teach them which lines to hit. That's why there's the 3 lines on the lined paper for elementary school, because the B is going to start from the top line to the bottom line, then you're going to go from the middle line to the bottom line, like all those little things that may seem tedious to you and your child. Do spurts of 5 minutes. You don't have to do 20 minutes of handwriting. Just have them work on one letter, and when they master it, the next letter you move on to, just practice the ones you've already mastered just once, and then move on to the new one and do the new one, I don't know, for another 5 minutes, and then you're done. And then you just build off of that, and then eventually they can catch on and become better at their handwriting. I don't shy away from having my girls rewrite stuff. They understand that. I always tell them, I'm like, I barely give you anything to write, and when I do give you something to write, I'd like you to do it 110%. So they understand, like, that if they don't, they're gonna have to erase and like redo it. And it might seem like that's a lot for a first grader and a third grader, but I've only had to do that to them a handful of times because they catch on. They're like, okay, wait a minute, if I just slow down, if I just do this correctly, I won't have to worry about it. And then they become not perfectionists, but they also take pride in their work, and they start to try to like do the best they can on their own. Like a lot of the times, if I'm showing the girls writing, you can tell that they catch themselves if they mess up a letter or whatever, and they can fix it on their own without me telling them to. So so that's my approach to handwriting. I didn't use a curriculum. I did it myself. I taught my girls to write in preschool, and then every year I go down in the size of the lines to match their grade level. And I will say that if you don't give them the proper spacing, sometimes it can get sloppy just because it's either too big or too small. So I realized that in the writing with ease, the lines are a lot thicker, or like wider. So Olivia, who's my first grader, when she writes in that, it actually gets a little sloppier because it's too big for her. So I give her leniency on that. I'm like, you know what? I'm not gonna like remake the pages for them. So if that's, if it just gets sloppier because she is using the bigger lines, that's fine. But it's a tip for you guys if, your children are writing a little sloppier, if they're not able to like smoothly write on the lines size that you've given them, maybe they need to move up or move down, and that could be something just like trial and error. But yeah, so I hope this was helpful. If you have any questions, just let me know. All right, bye.